Hi weaving friends, have you ever been warp diving? Sounds like a whole lot of fun, doesn't it? I've done it a whole lot and I can tell you all about it. Also in today's video, we're going to be discussing two different types of boat shuttles because they relate very much to warp diving. So let's get into the adventure. Well, I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but warp diving is not as much fun as it sounds. So what is it? Well, it's when you're throwing your boat shuttle from one side of the warp to the other side, and something happens in between to make the boat shuttle angle downwards and through your warp, and then it settles wherever it decides to go. But don't take my word for it. I have some live action video of an actual warp dive for you to see. Oh no. Yoo-hoo, where are you? Some pretty common specifics that will usually be happening in order to make your boat shuttle go from this to this. So one common issue is that your warp tension is either uneven or not firm enough. So if it's uneven and your shuttle reaches a section of unevenness where it's looser than the rest of the warp, then that may cause it to angle down. And then if your warp in general is not firm enough and it has this kind of sagging aspect to it, you might not notice any visible sag, but you might be able to feel that it's just not that firm. So you're asking your boat shuttle that is flat underneath to travel across a flat surface, which most boat shuttles will do quite willingly. But if you're asking it to travel across a surface that is just a little bit sagged, and especially if you happen to have a boat shuttle that is a bit pointy or angled on the end, and especially if that angle is a little bit downwards, then the end of the boat shuttle is very likely to catch on one of those sagging threads, and then away it goes. You've lost it underneath the loom somewhere, and you're going to get on your knees and you're going to look for it. And hopefully you've got carpet tiles underneath your loom like I have, so that when it happens, your boat shuttle doesn't get chipped or dented or otherwise damaged. But if you've got a hard floor, And in addition to those things that I already mentioned about your warp tension, you also want to have the right shuttle for the right project that you happen to be working on. So if I had a narrow little scarf on this loom, I could quite happily use an 11-inch or a 13-inch boat shuttle without any problems. And I could kind of shoot it through and I'd just be passing it from hand to hand because it doesn't have to travel very far. But if you've got a larger warp on, like I have for this blanket right now, I'm going to need a shuttle that is right for the job. A small length shuttle is just probably not going to cut it. And so that's something else to take into consideration when choosing the shuttle for your project. I personally am very blessed to have a range of boat shuttles to choose from these days. It wasn't always that way, of course, but today I wanted to specifically talk about two types of boat shuttle that I have, and that is a closed bottom boat shuttle and an open bottom boat shuttle. They are fairly self-explanatory, but perhaps you've never seen one and perhaps you don't know what the differences would be and why you would choose one over the other. Let's have a look at an open bottom shuttle first. Now, these shuttles are generally more lightweight because they simply don't have as much wood on them. They are an open bottom, so let's just pull that bobbin out so that you can see exactly. And so once the bobbin is out, it is a fairly lightweight shuttle. This one is a 13-inch shuttle. Of course, you can get open shuttles in a huge range of sizes. So apart from it being a lightweight shuttle, and by the way, this is a side feed shuttle, which means that when I load the bobbin, the yarn comes out of the side. There are different types of shuttles in that regard as well. So the yarn feeds out of the side, and it's very easy to load the bobbin in and out because to get that middle spindle out, the metal part, I can just push it from underneath and it just pops out very quickly like that. This particular shuttle has a magnetic fastener on the inside, just at the top of the spindle, which makes it really quick to just pop in and out very easily. And so a lot of people like an open shuttle for that reason, just that you can change out the bobbin really fast. I've also heard that some weavers, when they are actually weaving with the shuttle, they like to have a bit of finger control actually on the bobbin as the yarn is feeding out. That's not something that I personally do, but it's something that I have read that is something that a lot of weavers do like about this type of shuttle, that it's a little more tactile. If you want to get your fingers in there, if you have a particular technique that you use when you're throwing the shuttle that involves touching the yarn or feeling how it's feeding off, that's another aspect of this type of shuttle. An open bottom shuttle will generally be a low profile shuttle, which means it's not all that high. They're usually around an inch high. I believe this one's about an inch high, which means that it's really fantastic for smaller sheds, rigid heddle looms, things like that, where you don't have a whole lot of space in your shed to accommodate a larger boat shuttle. So now let's have a look at the closed boat shuttle, which you can probably see, as its name says, it has a closed bottom as opposed to the open bottom. So there's no seeing your bobbin from underneath, and there's no touching it from underneath, except for this closed shuttle. It has this really handy little hole, so you can just pop your finger in there and that can pop the bobbin up for you. This one loads in exactly the same way as the open shuttle does, except for the fact that you have a finger hole underneath instead of being able to pop the bobbin up from anywhere underneath. The closed boat shuttle is ever so slightly higher than the open shuttle, and that is just to accommodate in the design of not having that cutout at the bottom. The closed bottom is also ever so slightly heavier than the open one, obviously because it has a piece of wood where the other one does not. So the closed bottom is completely smooth and rounded on this side, which makes it really fantastic for gliding across those warp threads. By the way, if you are interested in knowing more about boat shuttles, I have a companion blog post to go with this video, but I have a lot more detail in the post. So I'm going to link that down below. It includes like a weight comparison and size comparison and all of that different kind of information that you might be looking for if you are wanting to invest in a boat shuttle yourself. Okay, so why would you choose one of these boat shuttles over the other? We already touched on some points, but let's summarize it to make it really clear. Okay, so the open boat shuttle has a lower profile, so it's good for smaller sheds and also for narrower warps where you can shoot it across and grab it with the other hand very easily and quickly. One thing about an open boat shuttle is you do need to be a little more careful about how much you load in the bobbin, because that open bottom can create a little bit of drag if it's overloaded. So you might find that when you are throwing it across your warp, that it's a little slower to get across than a closed boat. And you can see that here in the demonstration, that the closed boat shuttle shoots across much more readily than the open boat shuttle does. but bear in mind that I'm also using this on a really wide warp, and so that wouldn't be an issue for a narrow warp. This is also a lighter weight shuttle, just slightly, but it depends on the brand as to how much lighter it is. So perhaps if you have shoulder or neck issues and the weight of the shuttle is important to you, then you want to go for something a little bit more lightweight. Okay, so for the closed boat shuttle, this one is fantastic for shooting across the warp. Make sure that your warp has really good tension so that you can do that effectively. But the smoothness of the bottom means that it can shoot across super fast, even on a wider warp. Now, as I mentioned, it has slightly more weight than its counterpart. This particular model doesn't have a heap more weight. You can see that comparison on the article that I mentioned before, but it's just something to think about if you do have those shoulder issues. I don't think you would have any problem with this weight of closed shuttle. This one is still pretty lightweight. So again, I said it had a slightly higher profile, and so if I had a smaller shed, I would probably be reaching for the open one. And of course, with the closed boat shed, if you're a tactile weaver and you like to feel that yarn feeding off, then you won't be able to do that so effectively with the closed bottom, which encloses the bobbin. For a closed boat shed, you may not get quite as much yarn on your bobbin when you load it, simply because you don't have the extra space at the bottom for any of that bobbin yarn to protrude. But that's not necessarily a bad thing at all, because as I said, if you overload, then you'll end up with drag on the open shuttle anyway. So friends, I particularly wanted to share with you these two shuttles that I've been talking about today and tell you a little bit about them. This is not a sponsored video, but I am an affiliate for the company. But the reason that I wanted to tell you about them is that I have been testing them on my big loom with my wide warp, and I'm just so pleased. I'm going to tell you the number one reason why I am so happy with these shuttles. These are the first boat shuttles that I have used that have had 0 warp dives. Now, I've been weaving with these extensively. I've never had a boat shuttle that has not had a warp dive at some point, but these two have not. And I think it's a combination of things. It's the balance of the shuttles. It's the way that they feel in the hand so that you can get that good straight angle when you're throwing the shuttle. But I think it's also the way that the ends are tapered. They seem to be tapered just right to avoid any catching of bottom warp threads or to avoid any angling down. So the closed bottom shuttle has been particularly good for this warp, but I'm also really happy with the open shuttle. It also handles this warp really well, a little bit slower than this slippery fish here, but it still gets there in the end, and I'm really happy with these shuttles. Now, these shuttles are handcrafted by Pickers Ridge in Far North Queensland. They use sustainable wood, and they're a family-owned business. I also love that even though these are handcrafted and handmade from start to finish, they are an affordable boat shuttle for a weaver who's looking for a quality boat shuttle. I'll leave my affiliate link for Pickers Ridge down below, and I urge you to check them out. You will not regret it. They have a bunch of other beautiful wood products as well, but for us weavers, they have these stunning boat shuttles, and from what I've heard, there may be some other weavers' tools in their future. I have one last tip for you weavers today with boat shuttles, a way that you can make it more certain that you do not experience the dreaded warp dive. So when you open your shed, the way that you hold the shuttle and enter the shed with the shuttle is really important. So we want to go into the shed and just kind of rest it there a little bit for a minute. That gives you a little bit of a feel for it, and also ensures that when you enter, you're entering at a good flat angle. Stay close to the reed because that's where you have the most amount of space. Now, there are all kinds of methods for throwing a shuttle, right? And when you practice over time, you're probably going to develop the method that works best for you. You might be an underhand thrower, you might be an overhand thrower. It doesn't matter. What matters is the results, whether you get a nice clean throw and it ends up where you want it to end up. For myself, really, I think I do a bit of both. Sometimes I'll throw underhanded, sometimes I'll throw overhanded. It's really about what's comfortable for you and about getting that nice flat angle. What I like to do is, as I said, just sit it in there. The end is poking out, but a lot of the shuttle has entered into the shed, so I can feel the balance of the shed. I've ensured that my warp is as consistent as possible and my tension is really nice and tight without overdoing it. One way that you'll know that your tension is too tight is if it's really hard to beat. Okay, and then once I've got that balance feeling, I'll draw it out a little and then I'll shoot it. So did you see what I did with my finger? Okay, just in case you have no idea, this is one way, okay? It's not the only way. It's never the only way. It's just one way. But I really like to shoot my shuttles, and I am on a very wide warp, and so I can afford to shoot quite a bit. And so I can draw it out a little and then go. And then that takes the shuttle almost to the other side of the warp. Here is the open bottom shuttle, so we can see how that one is. Now that feels different in my hand. Straight away, it's lighter. And of course it feels different because I don't have that closed bottom. And so it doesn't feel all flat and smooth on the bottom, but it still feels like a very balanced thing. My bobbin is not overloaded, and so I don't have yarn protruding down and touching my warp. So that is ideal. And again, off we go. I hope that bonus tip at the end was helpful to you. Just remember that with any new tool, you'll want to practice and find the right balance for yourself and learn to love the tool. Personally, as a weaver, I love to use tools that are beautiful as well as very functional, and these boat shuttles definitely fit that bill. Again, I'll leave the link for Pickers Ridge down below. They have a couple of the most stunning figured silkwood maple shuttles at the moment that have almost like this tigery effect. I'll try and put one on the screen so that you can see, but like a rippled effect through the wood that are just stunning. I have been eyeing them off myself. They are a limited edition, so by the time this video comes out, they may be gone. But again, I hope that you can take a moment to check out their beautiful handcrafted Australian pieces. They also ship to the US. All right, friends, I need to get back and work on this beautiful overshot blanket that I have been working on now almost forever, but I'm on the second blanket. I've finished the first one. And so hopefully this one won't take me too much longer. But hey, it's not hard to work on something when you have a gorgeous overshot design and wonderful boat shuttles to weave with. And of course, this beautiful loom. Well, thanks for visiting with me today, friends. And hopefully I'll see you again really soon with another video. But until then, happy weaving.